It's an honor and pleasure for me to be with you here and present you ETC's latest research. And actually, I will focus on two main things in my presentation. The first part will be about intra-European travel, also very fresh from the oven, some research from ETC published just 2 weeks ago. And the second part will be about sustainable tourist practices. Now maybe our colleagues from Interpret Europe can share my presentation, the screen. All right, super. We can go to the second slide. Yes. So before starting my presentation, I would just like to say a few words about the organization I present here today, the European Travel Commission, which was founded in 1948 as part of the Marshall Plan. And its mission actually has not changed since then. So for more than 70 years, we have been promoting Europe as a tourist destination outside Europe. And our members are 33 national tourism organizations of Europe, such as, for example, Slovenian Tourist Board, German National Tourist Board, Tour España, Visit Finland, and so on. And we also have 15 private organizations as associate members. We have three main activities. We are focusing on three main activities, and these are producing valuable market research on the principle of economies of scale, promoting destination Europe, and advocating for the importance of the travel and tourist sector in front of the EU policymakers. We are not the European Commission or a body of the European Union, but we do work closely with the Commission on promotion and research. We can go to the next slide. I would like to start my presentation on focusing on the results of a new report that we released recently on a framework project co-funded by the European Union. And this survey monitors the sentiment and short-term intentions for domestic and intra-European travel. And this is the 8th wave of market research since it was initiated in September 2020. And responses are collected from Europeans in 10 high-volume source markets in light of the COVID-19 crisis. And the data collection for this specific survey took place in July this year. If we can go to the next slide. I structured the this part of the presentation in three areas, just to give you a glimpse of people's travel intentions, their trip planning, and their travel concerns. We go to the next. And next. Yeah, so despite the Delta variant, travel intentions remains very high. And here on the slide, we can see that 68% of Europeans plan to travel within the next month, and meaning this by the end of January 2022. And this is compared to 70% of the May 2021 survey, meaning that the intention slowly decreased. And the to travel in the next months, we have Poland, Spain, Italy, and Austria. Very important to mention here is that the COVID-19 vaccine is key to tourism recovery, and the COVID vaccine remains an essential prerequisite for traveler confidence and booking behavior. And actually, 1 in 2 Europeans plan to book a trip as soon as they are vaccinated. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. At the same time, we can see that more than half of the respondents to this survey expect that the EU digital certificate will facilitate planning their next trip and crossing borders. But only 18% doubt that this certificate will ease and simplify their travel experience. We can go to the next one. This survey shows very high interest in intra-European travel. Over half of the Europeans with short travel plans prefer to visit another European country. And here on the slide, we can see the top 5 countries, on actually destinations on their wish list. And we have Italy, Spain, France, Greece, Croatia, Germany, and so on. And we can say actually that Mediterranean destinations and their sunny beaches topped Europeans' wish list for summer and autumn 2021. We can go to the next. The Europeans with short travel plans shared preferences for spending their next holiday out in the fresh air. And here we can see their preferred type of leisure trip. The first one would be the sun and beach, second coast and sea, and then nature and outdoors. And very close to nature and outdoors, we have the city break. So these are like the main preferred leisure trips. Yeah, and in general, Europeans are going after the sun, as we can just see here. We can go to the next part of the presentation. It's looking at the trip planning phase, and the next slide. We were wondering, what do Europeans miss the most about traveling? And the result of the survey show us that enjoying life in a relaxing environment, escaping from the routine, spending quality time with family or friends, creating new lasting memories, living the local life and immersing the local culture are the things that Europeans missed a lot. And Europeans traveling with their family want to spend quality time together, reconnecting, while those traveling with their partner focus on enjoying romantic leisure time and enjoying life in a relaxing environment. We can go to the next one. The preferences of, we call them early birds, travelers, meaning the travelers that plan to go on a trip in the next 6 months. The preference for them are the family trips, 39% of them, and then are the trips with their partner. We can see on the slide 35% of them. So this is very stable across the surveys. Because as I said, this is like the 8th wave of research. And just a few of them, 11%, are planning to travel with their friends, and 10% of them to travel solo. We can go to the next one. According to this survey, 34% of the respondents are most likely to travel in the next 6 months will take a trip of 4 to 6 nights, and just 27% of them are going to embark in a 7 to 9 nights trip, and a very small percentage of 12% are going to opt for trips of 10 to 12 nights. We can go to the next one. We can see here that on this slide that Europeans show a consistent preference for staying in hotels on their next trip. More than 50% actually prefer either a hotel chain or resort or an independent hotel and resort. while there's much less interest for short-term rental via online platforms or other paid services accommodation. We can go to the next one. The next part of the presentation. Here we're looking into the travel concerns. Yes, and the next part. And the vaccine rollout, the flexible cancellation policies, and fully lifted travel restrictions Europeans travel confidence the most. But we shall not also forget about the destinations' effectiveness in managing COVID-19, the health and safety protocols at the destinations, and getting an EU digital COVID certificate. And very important here is that the travelers planning a trip between October and November, the pre-travel COVID-19 tests are the second most important factor for them, and this should be made highly available, accessible by destinations and businesses. We can go to the next slide. Well, there are also some concerns from the travelers when it comes to planning their trips, despite the very high interest to travel. And here we can see the top concerns. And first one would be the quarantine measures during the trips. Then we have the rising COVID-19 cases in the destinations they want to visit, and the changes in travel restrictions during their trips. We can go to the next one. And health-wise, Europeans perceive using public transportation, air or ground, to be the riskiest part of their journey. But they are now a little bit more concerned about attractions, tours, and activities. This is compared to the last survey, this comparison, that they are now a little bit more concerned. But in general, it's not the biggest concern. The biggest concern is the air travel, in destination transport, and the food and beverage. And at this part of the presentation, we can go to the next slide. I'm finalizing with telling you that actually all this research is available on our website to download the full report free of charge. So we highly encourage you to have a look there, and there will be also next waves of research. Each couple of months we published a new wave, so yeah, you can have a look there. We can go to the next slide. And here I would like to speak about the way forward for the European tourism, and I introduce you another research paper, which we also published very recently in the month of September. And this is focusing on sustainable tourist practices. And as it was also said by Helena earlier, after a long period in which sustainable or responsible tourism was perceived as a niche product or a type of tourism, now the sustainability practices are becoming like mainstream. It's like a must. The COVID-19 pandemic had a devastating effect on the sector, that we can say for sure. But this break in travel has also shown a light on tourism models that truly create value for destinations, their communities, and environment. And yeah, we have to look more closely at this. We can go to the next slide. Here in this slide, I would like to introduce you this research report, which is called ETC Handbook on Encouraging Sustainable Practices. And it's a practical guide for European NGOs and DMOs on how to work with the partners in the public and private sectors, and to encourage businesses and visitors to make more sustainable choices. In the handbook, we have key sustainability trends in demand and supply, which I'm going to present you in a minute, together with some key takeaways and recommendations. And we have featured in the handbook 20 case studies that highlight the ways in which European and other worldwide destinations are embedding sustainable approaches in their travel and tourist sector. We can go to the next slide. Pre-pandemic, there was already concern around climate change and the overconsumption of resources. And there was increased pressure by tourists at certain times and places. We remember that, the so-called over-tourism. And now with the COVID-19 pandemic, businesses were forced to make some changes, to show greater flexibility and compassion, responsibility towards especially the customers and the local communities, to innovate, to collaborate with each other and with the local authorities, and to make their businesses more purpose-driven. But the pandemic also forced the consumers, the travelers, to make their some changes in their style, in their travel style. And here it's more about the slowdown. We all experience that, and reassess their approach to travel and to think more carefully about the impact of their spending on the society and the environment. We can go to the next slide. And even before the pandemic, there was concern about sustainability, especially related to climate change. But now during 2020, the pandemic, climate change, and many social movements made consumers more aware of the global issues and personal responsibility about addressing them. We can go next. And here, the next slide. I would like to introduce to you some key trends that demonstrate consumers' increasing interest to embrace sustainable tourist practices. We can go to the next slide, which gives you an overview. And here I would like to highlight specifically some of them. It's the seeking of authenticity. They value the consumers now are increasingly valuing individual, authentic experiences over just products, in particular those which enhance well-being and foster a sense of connection. And the research in January 2021 found that consumers' top travel preferences now include relaxation and immersion in local culture. And here a question, what can destinations do to enhance this seeking of authenticity? They can involve the local communities in the tourist planning, development and management to ensure that culture and heritage are respected and preserved, to work with the local businesses, to develop a range of distinctive experiences to offer visitors, work with local groups and businesses to identify ways to boost positive interaction between local residents and visitors, develop strategies and programs to reverse the depopulation of rural areas, including supporting the development of local employment opportunities in tourism. And I think also here, your role is huge in working with the destinations especially in this tourist planning and development, of offering something unique to the visitors. Here we also note the slow travel, embracing slow travel. I just mentioned before that we all slowed down a little bit or maybe a little bit more during the pandemic. And 2020 saw an acceleration of slow travel, meaning with longer stays and fewer destinations visited in the same trip. And what can destinations do? Again, another question. They should develop routes and itineraries that link off the beaten track, local accommodation attractions, experiences, and producers, and develop tourist products and experiences oriented for families and digital nomads, and encourage local residents and tourist stakeholders to support and provide opportunities to accommodation providers to grow capacity for longer term stays. And the last thing I would like to highlight here is responsible and ethical purchasing habits. At home or when traveling, consumers are looking to favor like the local heroes, and SMEs with a personal face that they are integral to the local economies. We can go to the next. I'm approaching almost the end of the presentation. And what can we say here? That tourism is complex and very diverse and multifaceted sector. And every company and destination will face different sustainability challenges as well as opportunities. But there's still a need to accelerate the use of sustainable tourist practices in whatever they do. And here we said major efforts are still required to decarbonize travel and address the many other burdens that tourists might place on the environment and communities around the world. We can go next. To the next slide, which about the key trends that demonstrate the increasing interest among public and private sector organizations in embracing sustainable tourist practices. And we can go to the next slide. Here we have again an overview of these trends. And I would like to highlight the regenerative tourism. And here, this is using tourists to positively contribute to the destination and its environment as part of a broad ecosystem. And what actions can be done by destinations to recognize that there is an opportunity to go beyond mitigating negative impacts and generate positive social and environmental benefits for people, and identify the ways in which tourists can contribute to the destination, and invite the local people in the planning and the delivery of the visitor experience. And again, here you all have a great role in the regenerative tourism. That destination should be also working with you and in delivering something special for the visitors. Other things to highlight here, setting new measures of success. Destinations are looking a lot in changing the way they measure the success and prioritizing the local well-being and the value over volume. And using tourism revenue to protect and conserve natural and cultural heritage assets. And the last thing is promoting a strong sense of place. And the destination should work with local people to identify what is special about the destination and what it's making the locals proud about the destination, and develop a unique tourism offer. I will stop here. And just to conclude, we can go to the next slide. Also, this handbook is available to download on our website. And it's really a comprehensive handbook with case studies showcase. So I'm sure you will find some interesting things for you there. And yeah, just to conclude, that information and knowledge sharing is essential to mitigate the social and economic impact of the pandemic. And while we work together to rebuild the sector, is crucial to consider not only how to make people travel in a safer, sustainable, and more responsible way, but also to think about how the tourist sector can contribute even more positively to society and have a reduced impact on the environment. And I would like to thank you so much for your attention. And I wish you a great conference ahead and with lots of interesting discussions and conclusions. Thank you once again for the invitation. It was a big pleasure.
Thank you, Iulia. This was really a very nice presentation, very interesting one, very inspiring. I think that we all here in the interpretation community feel strongly about what you said, because it's, well, we have always thought that that this interpretive approach to heritage is the missing link to make tourism more sustainable, more in context of what you were talking to us about. Now, I called everybody to comment on your presentation and to ask questions, but there were not many questions. Obviously, you were like really very clear on what you said. Thank you also, Ivana, for sharing the links that Iulia mentioned in her presentation. So you can all find in the chat box the links to these papers that Iulia mentioned, and read them later in peace. Okay, so now we can, just realign. And okay, there is one comment from Sandy. That says that interesting that reputations are a preoccupation as well as income, money to change paradigm to sustainable tourism, and it's a big step. So how can ETC facilitate this? Do you see the question, Iulia?
Yeah, I can see the question. We work a lot with our national tourism organizations, so they are the ones that, let's say, should drive the change in their own countries. So we start at the European level with these kind of initiatives, and we have started actually a long time ago. And we also advocate, the sustainability has been on our agenda for a long time, so we advocate this in front of the European Commission. And they are also taking now the drive towards 2030, 2050. Sustainability, it is at the very core of whatever they do. So it starts from the European level. So this is how we facilitate it. We do a lot of advocacy in that direction. And we also do all this kind of research and for our members, but we also actually change our marketing approach. We have a different strategy in place, and we don't focus on promoting very big destinations, and we focus a lot on promoting smaller destinations and across the continent. So we take a really different approach, and we look a lot at the passion communities. These are different types of people. We completely changed our approach, basically, and also in marketing. So yeah, that's a long story actually to tell you about the types of the themes that we have now. We have 3 different themes at ETC, and one of them is slow travel, actually. Then we also have the Creative Europe theme. So yeah, I'm not sure if I fully answered your question, but ETC has been starting this change some time ago. It's not just now, it's really some time ago, with our new strategy called Horizon 2022, which already comes to an end next year. So we are going to look into a new strategy as well. And sustainability, it is at the core of this strategy.
Yes, I agree. It is really a huge step to switch this paradigm to sustainable tourism for everyone. And you mentioned like local partners. Do you also, you said you were advocating this sustainable tourism principle on a higher level, but do you also communicate and cooperate with like local communities and locally?
Yes, I can tell you what we did. 6 years ago, we launched a European Tourism Manifesto, it's called. And this is it became, well, first it was a declaration of all our priorities for the sector. So We started with like 22 tourist stakeholders all together, telling the Commission and the EU institutions, these are our priorities. Sustainability was one of them. So we started with this manifesto, which in the end became an informal alliance of more than 60 public and private organizations, which are umbrella organizations. And we continue advocating for the priority of the sector in the coming years. And sustainability has always been there, but sustainability is transversal. It's not, it is a priority per se, but it also goes in all directions. So this was the thing that we started. But we work a lot at the very European level and with policymakers and other stakeholders.